And we're live. Woohoo!
That's so funny. I couldn't hear anything. You hear me? Which meant I couldn't hear anything.
Your phone has now started going all blocky. It was wonderful before the broadcast, but now it's gone a bit blockatron. Hey ho. We seem to lose our two viewers immediately, so that's interesting.
They're like, "What is this?" Nope.
No,
What is this?
definitely not.
Just kidding.
I've added some more sections, make it a bit more travel orientated, the show, even though I haven't actually given any thought as to what my answers would be.
Okay.
But let's start off with the first section, which, what were you up to this week?
What were you up to this week? What were you up to, Tim? What have you been up to this week?
What have I been up to? That's a very good question. I did a little bit of LinkedIn stories I've started doing occasionally. I feel like I haven't done very much, but I've probably done quite a lot. This is one of the problems. I should probably journal or write like a diary, just to remind myself all the stuff I have done.
Wait, say that again. LinkedIn stories. What is this?
Well, LinkedIn now has stories. You know, on Instagram and Facebook, they've had stories for a while. Well, they've been rolling out LinkedIn stories, and they rolled it out to the UK last week. I haven't done them every day, but I've started to do them just entirely related to the automation stuff I've been looking at, working on, which I have actually made some progress about. The trouble with the automation stuff is that I'm always finding new ways to do things, and I'm kind of thinking like, even the course I created on it, it's kind of like there's extra bits I need to add on to it to say like, well, you can actually do this.
Okay.
I mean, the reason why I'm excited by a lot of the automation tools I use is that when you're doing a lot of content marketing, you tend to be cut and pasting or writing the same stuff or using the same stuff over and over and over again. Even if you use a tool like the Agora Pulse to schedule social media posts, you still need to go into that tool most of the time and upload the stuff and do the things and copy it from somewhere else and put it in there. So I've been working on, I can basically, it's not quite there yet. It's not, I can press a button and it will do all the scheduling for like the Twitter chat yet. It's close to it. I've got about 4 buttons I need to press. So I'll press one and then it will do like one bit of some of the tweets, and then do another button, press another button, and then do more of them. So that's been good over the last week. But it doesn't feel like a big achievement.
Yeah.
What about yourself? What have you been up to?
This is so weird, Tim. My phone just went darker too. I'm trying to keep us lit, but for those watching, I'm using my phone today. So I'm trying to figure out how to stream from my phone. But yeah, it just went darker. That's so weird. So what have I been up to this week? Just today I had a meeting with 2 lovely women that we are working on the possibility of a very live and public podcast focusing on, and possible radio show, focusing on women who, actually, I take that back, people, incredible people throughout the county who have overcome trauma in some way or form. So we're bringing on guests who we're going to interview from throughout San Diego County, listen to their stories, include our own stories as we progress, and very much have a goal and a mission to show, one, that somehow we can find ourselves in each other's story and there's something healing in that. 2, the power of story, and 3, just empowering each other and cheering each other on goes a long way. And it kind of helps us step into our purpose. Often when we're coming out of trauma, we need some kind of hope, some kind of push to maybe even if it's just knowing we're not alone in our story, to help us move into our purpose, into the next, into whatever that looks like. So that'll be somewhat the focus. And I had a meeting, I think this was our 3rd meeting together, if I'm not mistaken, to come up with a show title, a mission statement, our purpose, and now we're ready to present it to those that need to hear it and kind of step into the next phase, which is the meeting with editors and producers. So that's one thing I've been up to this week. I feel like I was up to something else. What was I up to? Oh, I worked with my boyfriend to create a page for my book as it's nearing publication.
Yeah.
I did send out some, what are they called? Query letters? Is that what they're called when you
query letters?
Query letters.
Yeah.
Query letters.
Not query.
Query. I pitched a couple publishers and agents just to see why not. What's the worst that can happen? They can say no, but why not try? And I kind of started off with agents and publishers I had heard of, and then a friend sent me a link to local agents and publishers, I believe. I'm just going to try and see what happens. Otherwise, I have no problem with self-publishing. I think that's either way is grand. But yeah, so I did that
it's going to be
this
cheaper,
week.
So.
Yeah, cheaper, and it really. I'm noticing it also depends on the publisher as to what offer.
Yeah.
Just in the little research that I've done, I noticed some publishers were basically like, how much influence do you have? Who do you plan to push to? Others were like, we'll very much help you, and this is what we can offer you, kind of thing. I've noticed both. So I know some want to publish you unless you have a certain amount of influence.
Yeah.
You probably know all this, right? Because you've missed out, but it's.
I know surprisingly little about traditional publishing, to be honest.
It's something
but I have heard that they are very
so
much on like on the numbers. Have you muted yourself? Yes. So you have muted yourself. So I'm going to have to do the share on my own then. From now on, Christelle is just going to do sign language. I think she's probably hit the mute. Can I unmute her from here? It's just it's the great thing of discovering. No, I think it says unmute. I can't. Oh no, she's left. So that was a great show, wasn't it? I have actually got some new. To give you a little sneak preview, I've got some new segments. So I've got this segment, and I've still got this one, even though I haven't done any research whatsoever on this one, so I probably won't do it. Now we're back to this, and hopefully Christelle will reappear. These are the kind of situations that they tell you about at live streaming school. You have to talk as if you're on your own. So there seems to be nothing happening. So has anybody got anybody watching the replays wondering what's going on? This may be a situation where I have to just wing it for a few minutes. I see Christelle coming back in the stream. I thought I was going to have to do my Anchorman impersonation.
Do your comedy show, Tim. Okay, so let me just explain this. I realized the negative of going live on my phone. When someone calls, it completely mutes me and blocks me out. So that's what happened. Someone called, it muted me immediately. I couldn't figure out how to unmute from my phone. And then it wouldn't unmute, and now here I am. But that could possibly happen again. So this may keep happening. My son's in school using the computer, and I can't. He's using my computer, so this is.
Do not disturb option on the phone somewhere. I never. Nobody ever rings me, so it's not usually a problem. But,
you know what? People would keep calling me the same number over and over and over, thinking I'll answer it. But those who really know me know that I'm probably going to block you if you keep doing that. Don't do that.
I don't really ever answer any of the phones I get, because I think like somebody, if it's important, they'll leave a message. I've probably missed all sorts of opportunities because I like doing that, but I really don't like something on the phone.
I didn't answer the phone for years. I only, once I went back to work full time for the non, I had to do a lot of work on my own phone. So then that's what
Yeah.
pushed me back into actually finding the phone. But the best way to get me is by text, honestly, or direct message. I didn't
Yeah.
answer. I have big boundaries. I don't. And being an introvert, I don't answer the phone right away. I want to know. I'm probably not going to answer the phone. There, it's there. Don't answer the
Yeah.
phone. So don't bother calling
Right.
me. You,
Shall we?
but not on the
Shall
phone.
we try another segment now? Woohoo!
Let's do it. Let's do it.
I've got a new segment called "Somewhere I Loved," and
Somewhere I loved.
as in somewhere you've travelled to and you really liked.
Oh,
I've done exactly zero preparation for this, which
I have
is
two
probably.
answers.
You have two answers.
I have two places that I've loved. Well, I haven't traveled a lot of places, but I know the two places that I absolutely loved.
Yeah, and you're not allowed to say Canada and Mexico.
Well, Tim, I might.
It has to be specific places.
Are there rules?
Well, no, there's no rules really, because I just made this up as somewhere. But I was going to say Mystic in Connecticut.
I have less options than you.
Yeah, well, you've probably been. How many places in the US have you been to? You've lived in more places than I have. You have gone a bit Blockatron again.
I lived in, well, obviously San Diego, Los Angeles. Can you see me?
I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
You're jumping around a bit on the graphics, so just keep talking.
Okay, I'll keep talking. We'll deal with it. So I've lived in Los Angeles, San Diego, Los Angeles, Portland, Minneapolis. I've traveled to, all of California pretty much. Specifically stayed in a lot of cities throughout California, all the way north. Outside of California, obviously Oregon, Arizona, Texas, Florida, Missouri, Indiana, let me think, Wisconsin, Michigan, North Dakota and South Dakota. Did I say Minnesota? Yeah.
Yes.
Idaho, Iowa. Those are in the States. And then, of course, I would love to travel throughout Mexico, but I've only Baja California, which is right below San Diego.
Yeah.
And I would absolutely love to travel through Mexico. My two favorite places that I've been are Glacier National Park, which is in Montana. Oh, I left out Montana.
Yeah.
Montana. Absolutely gorgeous. Google it for pictures. It's so beautiful. The animals there that run freely throughout the entire park, which is massive, are different than what we have here in California. And then it's known for the geysers, the glaciers that spring out, the hot, what do they call it? Hot springs that literally spring up from the ground. That's just a beautiful thing to see. It's a massive park. Just absolutely beautiful. And then again, I haven't traveled a lot. So traveling for me to Canada was a beautiful experience, just exploring Montreal, the city, the food, the people. I love that they still hang on to their language of French. I absolutely love that. I loved seeing their architecture was beautiful. I loved river life. I kind of when I lived in Minneapolis, St. Paul, I lived along a river as well. And there's kind of a lively culture that springs up along rivers and water areas. So I absolutely loved Montreal as well. How about you, Tim? Your favorite places you loved? Is that what it is? Somewhere I loved.
Just reminded me of somewhere that I wasn't going to say, but Budapest has a fantastic kind of river scene on the Danube. I mean, I went for somebody's like 30th birthday or stag party or something, and it was in the middle of the summer. But I've never really been anywhere that has quite so many sort of like, it almost felt like being on the coast kind of thing. They had sort of almost beaches on the Danube. So that reminded me of that. I was going to say Mystic in Connecticut, which is a small kind of oldie worldy fishing village in Connecticut. Well, it's not really fishing village anymore. It's more tourist trap now, but it's got amazing architecture and quite a few fun things to do. I only did it on a day trip, and I wish I'd stayed overnight there. I'm not sure it's somewhere you'd want to stay for like weeks and weeks, but I mean, that is something with travel. Like sometimes you almost want to be able to stay in a place the right amount of time. So some places, it's like Granada in Spain is fantastic to visit, but we went for 4 days, and that was just too much for Granada. So yeah, I don't know where I was going with that story, but yes. So Mystic in Connecticut and Budapest, and I just added Budapest because you had to. So that's that. Do you want to try another new segment?
Tell me, I know I'm blocking. Yeah, but I have a question for you. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You got your hand on your face like this. But yeah, fire away.
Okay. I know I'm super blocky. I know. I'm super blocky and you're cutting out, but we just have to deal with it. I have a question for you, though, about places you love, somewhere you've loved. Tell me your number one love.
Tell me my number one love. Missing the rest of the
in England.
Oh, okay. In England.
In England. I'm getting cut off. Sorry, my cutting.
No, it came. It took its time, but the end of the question did come on. I was kind of like, tell me one. Tell me you're laughing. It's like, well, that's the whole point of it. No, in England. There's loads of places. I mean, I haven't really done England as much as I could have done. I mean, obviously London's full of. There's loads of areas in London that tourists don't go to. Like a lot of people are obsessed with the centre of London or sort of places off the centre of London. And you can spend your whole time. I mean, historically, London was a series of villages that all ended up being merged into one. I mean, the history of London was that there was the City of London, and then there was the City of Westminster. Those were both on the river, and then they ended up merging together because like they weren't that far apart; they were about 2 miles apart. And then gradually, in the turn of the 20th century, gradually all the villages around London all got subsumed in the urban sprawl around them. So there's so many different areas in London that you could just go into. But there's places like York, which is up in the north, which is quite interesting to visit. Even somewhere like Newcastle it can be fun place to visit. Edinburgh is actually, it's the only place in Scotland I've ever been, but that doesn't really count in terms of England. So Newcastle is as similar to Edinburgh as you get because it's not that far from Scotland, really. It's only kind of about 45 minutes of train journey from Edinburgh. Bristol's and Bath are interesting to visit. Cornwall, if you can get down there. Cornwall's right in the corner, like you know the little boot of the UK in the far west, in the bottom. That's Cornwall, and that's got its own kind of distinct, very Celtic vibe to it. Though the trouble, like anywhere in the UK, if the weather's good, then it's lovely. But the weather can be terrible, especially the weather gets worse the further west you go in general, because you get all the Atlantic storms and things, and they are and the same with Ireland has worse weather than England because they get buffeted by all the storms before we get them. So there is something to be said for living in the east of England. You don't get quite as bad weather as you do in the west. Trying to think of other places. Manchester's a great place to go visit. Even Birmingham, actually. Birmingham, the UK, it's like England's second city, and yet doesn't get the attention it deserves. It's just quite fun to visit for a few days. So yeah, that hasn't really answered anything. I mean, there's places I haven't been to in the UK which are quite popular. I've never been to the Lake District. I've never been to the Cotswolds. And they have like two of the biggest visitor areas in the UK. Because they're not especially easy to get to by train. Think of other places. I mean, there's so many national parks and forests, like the Yorkshire Dales. I went on a walking holiday, and that's beautiful around there. There's the Yorkshire Dales, there's the Yorkshire Moors, there's Derbyshire National Park. That's got loads of beautiful scenery. So, I mean, I think we've got a huge number of national parks. I think there's about 17 national parks in the UK. I don't think there are any in Scotland. I think it's some sort of bizarre. I mean, Scotland is largely like rural anyway, so it doesn't need national parks. But the UK's got a load of them. Wales has got a load as well. So yeah, there's so much you can see in the UK.
Okay.
I'm going to go on to a new section.
Beautiful.
Which is very similar to the last one.
Yay!
So where I want to go.
Somewhere I want to go. Somewhere.
Where do you want to go, Christelle?
Well, so many places. I have a list. On my list is obviously the United Kingdom, because one, my boyfriend is there, and two,
so
I've met so many lovely people from the UK. So many lovely people from the UK that I would love to meet up with, but just having gone on virtual adventures, I've seen places I want to visit. That includes Scotland and Ireland as well. Aside from that, Greece has always been high on my list. Ireland has always been on my list. I already named them, but they weren't.
Whereabouts in Greece
I never had interest in going to the UK until the past year. So.
Yeah. Where do you want to go in Greece?
I don't know enough about Greece to list certain cities, but I love. Huh? What did you say?
Well, yeah. Well, the funny thing is that when I was going to say correction on the first travel show we did 2 weeks ago. I listed every country I've been to, and I have been to Greece twice, but I've never been to mainland Greece. I've been to Corfu, and I've been to Kavos is in Corfu. I've been to Crete. Yeah, Crete. So two of the islands. I mean, most of the tourists go to the Greek islands rather than the Greek mainland. No, I've heard a lot of people love the Peloponnese up that side. So, and obviously Athens is worth visiting on its own. But yeah, it's that's why I was asking. Like, you might want to do some research on which bit of, because there's so many Greek islands and they've all got different characters and things. I mean, Samos is somewhere, not Samos. Santorini is somewhere I wanted to visit because that looks beautiful. But it's somewhere. I mean, there are places I think I would rather go with somebody else on a romantic holiday, and that's one of them. So Santorini. It's like Venice. I've never got to Venice because I'd rather go with somebody else. That makes sense. In a romantic, not in like just random with some other person.
Yeah.
But in a romantic thing. So those are two kind of romantic venues. In terms of where I want to go, I'll put it in the graphic actually. Two of the places in here, Egypt and Venice. And I've also put Peru, Machu Picchu in Peru. Even though I'm not that bothered about this. I mean, the whole altitude thing is, and it's quite hard to get up there and do stuff, but I think it could be interesting.
Oh, Peru looks absolutely beautiful. I mean, the history, the culture, the food.
Yeah. Well, I've not been to South America at all yet. I mean, it's funny.
I'm having technical
Yeah, no, it's okay. We'll just have to. We'll interpret your clicks and noises. Like, I'll just translate what you say. So
I know.
Yeah, Christelle really
so
wants to go to the Quickie Mart in San Diego. Right. Well, I could do the travel top 10. But I have no idea what the top 10's gonna be.
Oh dear.
Oh well, I've actually got a. I've got a
travel
hot recommendation.
Top 10.
Yeah, well, I don't know what the top 10 is I'd go for. I'd have to just Google something on the spot and see. I did have an idea. Let's see. Okay. Well, let's do the top 10s. I'm just going to wing it and hope I don't get sued by the Lonely Planet for sharing their website. Yeah.
Travel top 10.
So, oh, is it a video?
Top 10. What are we going for, Tim?
Oh, it's a video. No, okay. So that's not going to. Oh, top 10 countries. Let's see the list. Oh, that's interesting. So this is Lonely Planet top countries in 2020. I don't know when they did this.
Top 10 countries we want to visit. Oh, the best.
This is quite an eclectic list. Yeah, it's an eclectic list. So this one, which you probably can't see, is Bhutan.
Oh, we need to pay attention to this.
Yeah,
it's the top countries to travel in 2020. Is this pre-lockdown or?
I'm guessing it's pre-lockdown. I don't know.
I'd imagine England, because of the current situation.
Yeah. So Bhutan, England. I'm not sure about this England place. Something's a bit dodgy to me.
Okay.
North Macedonia, which used to be called the former Republic of Macedonia, because they had a massive row with Greece. I'm going off on a tangent here, but they were called Macedonia as part of Yugoslavia, but when they split off, Greece has an area called Macedonia in the north over the border from there, and they didn't like them being called Macedonia. So for ages they were called the former Yugoslavian Republic of Macedonia. But the Greeks didn't have an embassy and all the rest of it.
Oh, wow.
Back in but they've just come up with an agreement where they'll be called North Macedonia, and the area in Greece is going to be called Macedonia, as always has been. So hence it's North Macedonia. Aruba, which is in the Caribbean, I believe. Let's see what we've got. Ooh. Swaziland. That's a bit. This is really hipster. This is Lonely Planet, like top 10 destinations. I don't really know anybody who's ever been to Swaziland.
It's hipster.
Do you even know where Swaziland is?
Oh, I have.
I know where Swaziland is, but
I do. They go because of the safaris.
Yeah.
They go for the safaris. They're known for their safaris.
Yeah. Well, it's in that. It's
safaris.
I think it's
people go, and possibly that might even be where the
South
elephants.
Yeah. I think it's in the middle of South Africa. It's basically surrounded by South Africa. I think I'm in the right place.
Is it?
Okay. I'll let you talk. We'll have to have like on one of these. You have to say over when you finish speaking. Over.
Over. I was going to say, yeah, it's known for its safaris, and I think even the elephant this elephant, what are they called? Where you can go sleep in a tree, like a big tree house, and the elephants come up, or the giraffes. No, the giraffes that come up and you can see them from up above. I think Swaziland allows that, but I could be wrong. But definitely the safaris.
The next one is Costa Rica.
Over and out.
Oh yeah, totally forgot about that. Costa Rica is obviously in Central America, and it's another quite hipster place. The Netherlands, which is actually should be it's apparently Holland is only just a region of the Netherlands, so we should always call it the Netherlands, even though I call it Holland most of the time. I've only ever been to Amsterdam in Holland, and I wasn't madly impressed with Amsterdam, but I've heard the rest of Holland's really nice. So, over.
Over. Where are we next?
I can't see.
It's so tiny on my phone. Liberia?
Netherlands. Oh, Liberia, yeah. Now that's another bizarre choice. But one thing I've been, I'm talking over you again, but one thing I've noticed that we all make this mistake, certainly in the Western world, is that we tend to think places stay exactly the same. So we have a view of like how we thought the place was when we were teenagers or whatever, and we first learned about the world and we learned about places. But there's an awful lot of development in like a lot of these countries. It's like apparently Georgia in the former Soviet Republic of Georgia is very nice now, very safe, and it's become kind of a safe haven for a lot of like online business people. But you will tend to think that it's like the whole Borat kind of stereotype of people from Eastern Europe. And I'm sure that Liberia probably has come up, but Liberia is on the west coast of Africa. So you've got all your cliches to do with Africa. And the Americans, for some reason, have a very patronizing attitude towards Africa. There's this kind of like, oh, they're there. It's sort of like, and actually, a lot of Africans have developed faster than a lot of the American states in the last, certainly in terms of economic growth. They've been doing really well, obviously, before the lockdown. But anyway, I'm seeing if there's any more information about Liberia. Ooh, there is. For most outsiders, Liberia is a bit of a mystery.
I would go to Liberia. It sounds interesting.
But those in the know wax lyrical about the optimism of its people and the country's natural wonders. There are idyllic beaches washed by some of West Africa's best surf at low-key resorts such as Robertsport. And then there is Sapo National Park, the second largest area of primary rainforest in West Africa. There's famous pygmy hippos. And no, like, oh, okay. So that's interesting. Now I've got to go back up here and find the but there is a load of extra information here that I could have gone to. But let's just go through the top 10. And the last two are Morocco and Uruguay. So I'll let you talk about your thoughts about those last three, Christelle. Over.
I can't see them, Tim, because it's too small on my phone.
Well, it's Liberia, Morocco, and Uruguay are the last three. And Morocco's always been.
Oh, Liberia, Morocco,
Uruguay. I mean, these are obviously.
I would love to go.
Lonely Planet.
I would love to go to Morocco.
I think is Marrakesh in. Morocco?
I would go to any of these. One of them would.
Let's have a look at Casablanca. Yeah, it's got Marrakesh. Oh, it's got high-speed train. Ooh, you can now zip from Casablanca to Tangier in 2 hours. So that's why they're kind of, and it's also
Oh
going to
wow,
be Africa's
Morocco would
first
be a brilliant
Catholic
place to
culture
visit.
in 2020. Yeah, yeah. But I think that's been, Morocco's been on the rise for a while.
I'm all about every place here I'd visit. It sounds like an adventure.
Yeah.
I would love to experience the culture, the food, all of it. So
So
there's not one
that
place
was
I would
my
say, nope, absolutely not going.
yeah. Well, I think all of them. I mean, I think really, as soon as a place becomes moderately safe, people will visit it. I mean, I know people who visited places like Iran and Syria, and they say that, you know, like full of Iran, especially, it's full of loads of fantastic buildings and stuff. It's just been like closed off because of obviously all of the issues they've had internationally. And Syria obviously is not safe remotely for anybody at the moment.
Yeah.
So I think places will come back though.
Yeah.
I mean, even Lebanon was like a massive tourist place in the 60s and 70s, and then with their civil war, they managed to kill it off. Right, so let's get rid of that. And let's have a hot recommendations. Woohoo! Stop screen.
Hot recommendations. Can you hear me again still? Are we still?
Yes,
Are
you
we
sound like
still
you're
time?
clipping something, but yes, I can hear you. You've actually improved a bit. So
what's happening is your microphone. What's happening is your microphone. My phone is not liking the microphone, I think. So it's making it
yeah.
click. Like my sound on my phone isn't. It's making it click and fuzzy.
Yeah.
Which is
well,
odd.
it's
But
all
okay,
right.
so hot recommendation.
Well,
we're okay.
I've
Hot
actually
recommendations. Do you want me to go?
I've got a YouTube video that I want to recommend. Not really because it's especially a wonderful video and it's political, but there's a channel called Let's Talk Elections that I kind of listen to on YouTube, and the guy who was running it was like, well, are there any states that you can listen to on the or listen to or look out for on the election night, which will tell you who's likely to win? And the state that is most seen as the bellwether is Pennsylvania. And he runs it through, because I don't know if you know about 538 are this kind of semi-independent. I think they're now owned by ABC, but they're a semi-independent kind of. They model the election probabilities, and they've got a little online sort of thing where you can put in particular states and like, if this state has gone, what's the chances of Trump winning? What's the chances of Biden winning? And they were one of the few people who actually they had Trump and about 38% winning the last election, which they had like, well, that's kind of reasonable. They weren't one of these people who were saying 99% Hillary Clinton was going to win. But yeah, this guy was going and he was saying like Pennsylvania is if Pennsylvania goes for Trump, then there's a good chance he's going to win the election. But if it goes to Biden, then it's almost certain that Biden's going to win, just because of the way of the bizarre logic of the electoral college. It's all about like who wins particular places. The popular vote matters, but it doesn't matter that much, which is the peculiarity of your system. So I'll shove that in the comments, assuming I can find it. So that was my hot recommendation. Yet another YouTube video. I'll just go through my history and have a look at what. So put that in the comments. Woohoo! So have you got any recommendations, Christelle? Over.
Okay. I do. Bear with me because, again, our sound is off. But my hot recommendation away from politics, I love finding people who have long distance relationships, obviously, because I can relate. So I've been following this adorable. She is based in Australia. He is based in America. And I found him because he started a very popular Instagram. How they met. And they ended up starting their own Instagram as a long distance relationship focused Instagram. And they're getting ready to start a podcast, but the Instagram handle is our LDR Love. And they also have a hashtag because those of us who are in long distance relationships, with the lockdown, we're not able to see our partner. And so they started a hashtag and a movement called Love is Not Tourism, but it's hashtag Love Not Tourism. And I noticed they did a petition for that. The trick is, we know Australia, which I see as a very good thing, they put down a massive lock. And so it's even harder for romantic partners to see their loved one that might be in Australia or New Zealand, even more so than the rest of us. So that's kind of my hot recommendation. I love reading other stories that I can very much relate to. They've kind of told their story. They're adorable. It's fun to watch. So that's my hot recommendation for this week, I think. I'll stick with that.
Yes. And what other segment have we got left?
Over and out.
It's the serious bit, which is basically our normal show anyway, most of the time. So here's the serious bit with the not very serious. You may have noticed that I've turned off a lot of the fancy, like graphic things. Not that I'm stopping the idea of doing them. It's just that it's very hard with StreamYard, which is the platform I use. It's got a maximum limit for the amount, the size of the animations and things you can do. So I can either create them as proper like whole screen animations and get rid of us, but I like the fact that you have us and then you have these things happening around the screen. But I was a bit too ambitious with my previous ones, so I've just gone back to this. Mm. So I'll let you come up with a topic over and we can talk about the serious bit for 18 minutes.
Our serious is, how do we communicate when our sound is off? This is really good communication practice.
Yeah.
My serious is, how do we, it does relate to this a little bit. How do we maintain healthy conversation and relationships in the midst of controversy? And how perhaps that includes learning to be better listeners. And what does that look like? Learning to ask questions that show interested versus overtly expressing, I don't know, an opinion, though I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing all the time. But how do we do that? How do we maintain healthy conversation and relationships in the midst of controversy, and as we have here in the US, a huge, massive election happening?
Yeah.
Over, Tim.
Well, yeah. I like the old over thing you say. It sounds terrible. Yeah, I mean, to restate your question, which I can't think I got through, so probably listeners did as well, but it's like, how do we maintain communication and civil decency when we have very polarized societies and the like? I think there's a couple to me, and I'm talking off the hip here, but hopefully that'll mean you don't have to talk too much. You can just nod or shout at me or something. There's two problems I see in modern society, which are especially exasperated by the US elections, and also like Brexit and COVID as well. I mean, you just need to see people arguing about masks online, and you're kind of like, really? the two big issues are people aren't listening. People just don't seem to want to listen anymore. People got. I mean, I kind of thought that everybody was like me and they would listen to people and what people say, but a surprising number of people just do not listen to what the other person is saying. They are thinking about what they can say afterwards. It's almost kind of like the other person could go. So they're not really listening. A lot of people just can't listen anymore, and that's a big issue. And the other thing is the whole fear of retaliation or being treated badly if you say a particular thing or you do a particular thing or you upset somebody in a particular way. I mean, it's the whole cancel culture kind of idea, but that's not just a uniquely left-wing thing. I mean, if people on the right wing do it just as badly, it's like you should be able to say you support so-and-so or virtually any opinion that's not illegal. I mean, obviously, if you say I love going around shooting puffins at the weekend or something like really controversial, then that's one thing, or something that's illegal. Like I'm a serial killer or whatever. But too often it's kind of this person has this particular viewpoint, rather than like, well, why do they have that viewpoint? Sometimes it comes down to the fact that they don't listen. They've got their own dogmatic idea about it, and they don't listen to anybody else. And there's not a lot you can do about that, really, at the end of the day. But if you just immediately like say, oh, this person supports so and so, or this person has this view on this thing, and then you switch off and you don't listen anymore, or you basically like almost ostracize that person. I think that's a very negative viewpoint, because what happens is you just end up, people move to groups of people with their own opinions, and it's like, I saw somebody put a Facebook post up, which was very brave actually, saying like, who do you think will win the US election? Don't say anything apart from the name of the candidate you want to win. And I was surprised at the number of people who said Trump. I mean, it's a huge number of people said Trump. I still don't think he's going to win, but the problem is that like people are in communities where everybody is for a particular candidate, and even if they don't have that person's opinion and they vote a different way, they're not necessarily going to say. And it's bizarre that people just can't be honest and can't express opinions. So you don't have any debate about anything, and people can't understand the other point of view because they've never heard it. Anyway, over. That was a long rant.
Yeah, I think I picked up most of what you said, and I don't know that you're going to pick up anything that I say. I agree with everything you said. We have to practice. We have to practice being intentional listeners, so that we hear other people's points of view, as to step into their story. Practice empathy. And I will say, I radically changed from my own personal experience. I really changed many of my points of views over the past several years. And that was in large part by experiencing things I had never experienced before, but to learn more, by listening to stories, by putting myself into situations where I could hear from various points of views, and it completely radically changed my life. I think that's important. I think when we're willing to really listen, really, really intentionally listen, we don't necessarily have our point of view, but we will learn more, and we will show that we're empathetic, and we will at least try to understand where different people are coming from. And I think that's really important. I think the more that we listen to stories, perhaps the more we might understand different points of views. And that's really important And the bottom line is the more stories we enter into and listen to, we really realize that we all carry the same importance in life. What's important to learn and usually comes down to a desire to love and to be loved and to want to protect our family and those closest to us. Over and out.
Well, no, you don't have to end yourself completely. I mean, one of the things that I think people don't appreciate is the whole "don't burn your bridges." The whole "don't burn your bridges" thing, where it's like it's very good advice, is because the people you may be arguing with now who've got a different opinion about a particular candidate may in future be people who you choose to change in circumstances. You have loads in common with. It's just this particular time and this particular opinion and this particular candidate. And people change. I mean, people's opinions on things change. You don't know that your opinion may not change to be closer to theirs in future, or theirs might. But if you just suddenly cut people off and like just say, "Oh, this person is like persona non grata," I think that can be a bad move. I mean, there are situations when that's necessary, but I think there's too many people who are just basically buying the whole Kool-Aid of like, "Oh, cut everybody negative, cut everything out of your life that's negative," sort of thing. And I think that can be taken too far. Over.
Yeah. There's definitely situations where if you're in a dangerous situation or there is over abuse, definitely cut. But like you're saying, there's a large majority of situations where if we're willing to listen, we can at least come to a common of understanding. And now the other thing is too, there's some very important issues that literally are life-changing matters for people who might not, and things are really important to them. And that's where, again, we have to be willing to sit down and listen to why is this important to you?
Yeah.
Why does this matter? How has this, and you might find that you come through your own radical transformation. It's actually a good thing. I think so often we want to just stay this way. I'm not willing to listen to your point of view because I know ultimately I'm right. And that's just not good listening, and it's not trying to all people. So I'm keeping it kind of short because of our odd sound situation here. But yes, Tim, over and out.
Yeah, as people may have realised, I think we had a viewer for a while who was probably like, "What on earth is going on with this?" Actually, works better with the serious format than I think with some of the other stuff. I've forgotten what the point I was going to say was. Well, yeah, I think one of the other problems, and this is with partisanship, and it happened. I mean, we had it in the UK about Northern Ireland for ages. Both the sides there were very partisan, and they weren't listening to each other for years. I mean, I think they do a little more now because it's obviously more peace. But what happens is that people exaggerate what the other side is going to do if they are elected. So there's probably Republican people who think that if Joe Biden gets in, then like all guns will have to be banned, or something along those lines, which isn't realistically what they're going to do. And similarly, there's probably people on the Democrat side who have like had all sorts of ideas about what they thought Trump was going to do, which were way worse than what he's actually done. So I think there is exaggeration is another risk when you get into these partisan situations, because it can come because people know that if they exaggerate things, against somebody who's unpopular with a group of people, then that works in terms of media and selling stuff and the rest of it. So there are people whose natural instinct is to try and divide. So over, I suppose.
Over and out. I am going to suggest that now, because I'm having a very hard time. So I want to thank our viewers for joining us today. Thank you, Tim, for your patience.
Yep.
And we will see you next week on Election Day.
Oh yeah. We've got Tim Fall as the guest, isn't he? He's the judge. So that'll be interesting. So see everybody on Tuesday. Woo.
This is terrifying for me.
I've made more money in the last 3 years than I did in the previous 7.
It's just cliche shit, you know?